Now then, on the side, Phil Veacock is also known to be one of the finest bread makers in the music industry, doughing it up for family and friends and, like Phil, other musicians in the Jools Holland Band, where for over 30 years he's played tenor sax and been a musical arranger. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you very much, Lars. That's quite an intro. Thanks very much.
It certainly was. Probably one of the longest, but I got through it too. So, bread making. This is wonderful. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a funny little sort of sideline. It started when my kids were at primary school, and a group of the dads who used to sort of go to the pub together, and we kind of thought, well, going to the pub is not very productive, it's not very good for your health. Is there anything else we could do that would be fun and interesting? And someone found a bread making class, and we thought, well, that was that. So we tried that, and it was really great. And then we did a kind of advanced one. And blokes being blokes, it became sort of quite competitive, and we were kind of baking loaves at each other, who could make the best loaf. And gradually, the sort of guys fell away, and there was just me and my friend Simon, and we decided to sort of team up. He's very good at the he got really into making sourdough bread, but I was more interested in just making your regular loaf. So we kind of got together, and we started selling loaves at the school gates to the other parents and some of the teachers and stuff. It went very well, and it kind of took off. And we got this little online sort of bakery going, and people would order stuff, and gradually we started supplying local cafes and delis and things. And Simon, who was a carpenter, and he kind of given up being a carpenter, so he built he called it the bread shed in his garden. He's a sort of industrial kind of bakery in his garden, which was fantastic. And because it was getting too much, and I just sort of said, look, I can't keep up really with this. And he was doing the whole thing of getting up at 3 a.m. and anyway, now he is opening his own bakery in Charlton SE7, where we live, and very good luck to him. I just now make it just for people that ask me, and our family, really, and occasionally members of the Rhythm and Blues Orchestra, who are very big fans. Yes.
That's great. So we better talk about the saxophone, and it's the tenor sax you play. Does that dominate your role as a musical producer, arranger in the band, or does that not matter? And what is your role as a musical arranger?
It's a good question. The role of an arranger, people are often puzzled by that, and I think the best way to describe it is that in terms of, like, if you think about a chef who has like a load of ingredients. Sometimes it's very much like Ready Steady Cook, that television programme where they had random ingredients and they had to kind of make a dinner out of it. It's a bit like that sometimes. But you say you've got all your ingredients, you've got your saxophones and your trumpets and your trombones and the rhythm section, and you have to kind of make it into a nice cohesive whole. And to carry on the analogy a little bit, obviously, if you use too much of one ingredient, it overbalances the food, and it doesn't taste very nice. And it's very much like that with arranging. You have to kind of make sure that it's balanced. You have to make sure that you're not using too much of one thing. You have to make sure that it serves the song or the piece of music that you're dealing with. In terms of whether the tenor saxophone is important in that context, I mean, it's one of the voices, it's one of the ingredients. So in that sense, it's important. But it doesn't matter that I am a tenor saxophone player. In that, it's that it could be anybody could be doing the arrangement, or they might even not play any instrument at all. They could just be doing the arrangement. So the role of the saxophone is in there, but it's not the most important thing, in the arranging.
So we got bread, we got chef, we got...
It's all getting foodie, isn't it?
So the saxophone, what is it about this big, breathy, breathy, brassy sound, which sounds great on record? I mean, I personally love it live. A busker in a tunnel, just or say maybe somebody out in a field of daffodils, blue sky, harmoniously. I need to get my lyric book out.
It's very romantic, Lars.
What is it that does it for you?
I think all of those things, you kind of nailed it, really. It's because I think the saxophone is one of the instruments that sounds, especially the tenor saxophone, actually, that its timbre, its sound is like, it's the most like a human voice, and I think that is the kind of key to it. And the other thing is that it's a very individual instrument. Everybody plays it completely differently. So you get like Lester Young, say, who played in a very breathy kind of light way, or you get like Pharoah Sanders, say, who's like a sort of aggressive, like kind of really kind of booty sort of sound, or John Coltrane, or any of these people are so kind of individual. Everyone has their own individual voice, and it sounds like a human voice. So I think all of those things together are what gives the saxophone its unique appeal. The saxophone was invented by a Belgian man called Adolphe Sax in 1846. He was a clarinetist in a marching band, and he got very frustrated because no one could hear his beautiful clarinet playing, because the sound just didn't carry in the same way as the brass instruments, the trumpets and the trombones and the French horns, the instruments made of brass. So he thought to himself, well, why don't I make a clarinet, which is made out of wood traditionally, out of brass, and see what happens. Maybe that would make the sound carry a little more. So he tried that, and that worked well, but still didn't carry as much as he wanted, as much as the trumpets and the trombones and stuff. So what he thought was, well, if I put a bell, like a horn, on the bottom of the clarinet that would focus the sound up and out, much like the angle grinder you can hear behind me, then the sound will project and carry in the same way as the brass instruments. Because, of course, the saxophone is not a brass instrument, even though it's made of brass. It's a woodwind instrument because of the way you produce the note, which is using a reed on a mouthpiece, and that's what makes it part of the woodwind family, not the brass family. That gave us what we have today, and it wasn't really until the start of the 20th century that we started to get classical composers recognised it and started putting it into their classical pieces. For instance, Ravel put it in his famous piece Bolero. Then you got the kind of the greats of the saxophone, people who started making it into that individual voice that I was talking about earlier on, people like Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and people like that.
Same question I asked Derek Nash, who plays saxophone, and Winston Rollins, who plays trombone, also in the Jools Holland Orchestra Band. There must be, you play with so many artists, there must be some pinch yourself moments. Can you pick out one where you might think to yourself, I'm playing with this person who I had on the wall in a poster when I was younger?
A long while ago now, we were the house band for Chris Evans' game show called Don't Forget Your Toothbrush on Channel 4 in the kind of early 1990s. And every week it was people sort of forgotten about it a bit now, but it was the sort of forerunner of all those kind of shows, Saturday night shows like Anton Deck's Saturday Takeaway and things like that. And the kind of main thing of the show was that they would send people on holiday at the end of the show every week. And on one occasion, it was the last show in the series, and the gimmick was that they were going to send the whole audience away on holiday to Disneyland. And every week we would have a musical guest and we would play with the musical guest. And on this occasion we had Barry White.
As your body talks, we need to get serious to get on. That's right.
And of course, Barry White was utterly baffled by the whole thing. He just looked bemused for the whole time we were there. But amazing work. We played a few of his songs with him, and he was like how you imagine when you're a small child, how you imagine God. You know, if you have a mental image of what God actually looks like, Barry White, that's what Barry White was like. So he's like huge and imposing and just like dignified and great, beautiful, you know.
In our eyes tonight, I know you must know. The moon is set just for us to go.
Al Green, I would say, working with Al Green, just amazing, beautiful man, beautiful voice.
Let's stay together, loving you times are good or bad, happy or sad, all right.
Very funny. He pretended for about the first 20 minutes of us meeting him, he pretended that he couldn't do it, and then he kind of went and we all just went, oh wow, it was just he's having a joke with us. And beautiful singer, beautiful guy. When I was growing up, one of my favourite bands was The Jam, and of course now I'm working pretty regularly with Paul Weller. I just recently did All a Brass. Well, I've done his last 3 albums, but the most recent one, On Sunset, which I don't think it's still number 1, but it was number 1 until about 2 weeks ago, that album. So that's a pinch yourself moment. I was a massive Jam fan back in the day, and so to be actually kind of there doing it with him, it's like, wow, fantastic.
Yeah, great memories, great stories, great stories. You also mentioned in there soul. I've interviewed several engineers around the world about digital versus analog. I don't want to do an A and B, but these days on we've got channel for all the instruments and mix them up. But I'm quite interested in back in maybe the 60s, late 60s, 70s, all of those Motown. The big brass section was often round maybe 1 or 2 mics, and all that overspill was the sonic, the chocolate cake that made it one giant, wonderful mix.
I'm not an expert in any way on that sort of thing, but the person you need to talk to about that is Derek Nash, who is a fantastic sound engineer, and he studied being a sound engineer, and he worked for the BBC for a number of years, and he's like a sort of genius at recording things, and it is like all to do with mic placement and things like that. Jules is very keen on that, and when we record Jules's things, we have the whole orchestra in one room and record it all, and there's like ambient room mics capturing that, because we try and capture that sort of warmth and the kind of live, the sort of reality of it. And I think if you're just going in cold and one person at a time recording, you miss that. It becomes a bit colder. It loses some of that sort of humanity and the kind of communication, that you need between musicians.
Give it up for Phil Peacock!
I've done a few written a few articles about sanitizing your instrument, keeping it clean, and the fact that germs can stay on a hard, shiny surface like a saxophone for 3 or 4 or 5 days. Are you taking extra precautions now?
I teach in a number of schools, and we're insisting that the children, for example, sanitize their hands before they're touching the instruments. They've mostly got their own instruments anyway, but the ones that haven't have got their own mouthpiece, which that's solely theirs. And after each child, we're wiping it down with antiviral wipes and things like that. Best thing is that I've got my fantastic Fusion gig bag, which you can see behind me. One of the best cases, genius really, because it's got all those pockets for keeping stuff in. But the best thing, I think, is that inside it's got sort of double protection, because it's got this kind of little sort of lovely sort of padded sleeping bag for the saxophone to go in, which you then kind of strap inside the bag, which keeps it sort of rigid. Absolute genius. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, well thought out designs in, I think. So what's next for Phil Veacock?
At the moment, it's just trying to keep going, really. It's a difficult time. All of Jules's winter tour is being cancelled. We've got a lot of stuff in for next year, which we, fingers crossed, we're hoping is going to be will be a better time, and people are going to actually be able to get out and go to go to theatres again. We don't know if we're going to be doing a Hootenanny for the New Year show. We don't know if that's happening. From my point of view, things are coming back slowly. I did a little festival with a great guitarist called Dave Warren. I've got a gig with my trio, the Deptford Rivieras, Hammond, sort of 60s soul jazz kind of sort of thing. That's at the Pelton Arms, which is a fantastic South East London pub. They're really working really hard to try and get live music back happening. They should be applauded for that, I think, really, because it's such a difficult time. Hopefully be doing some more recording with Mr. Weller. You just have to wait and see, and you know, I'm teaching a lot, so I'm trying to keep going by doing a lot of teaching. But yeah, fingers crossed 2021 will be full of live stuff.
Yeah, let's hope we can get back out there. And I just thought we've mentioned chocolate cake as well, didn't we? So we've been through a bit of a menu here. Phil, it's been fantastic talking to you. You take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks very much, Lars. Thanks for having me. I'll see you soon.
See you later.